little after evening. I'm kind of exhausted, so if you see me sort of stare off into space, that's why. I was trying to think of something, and now I'm just something. Welcome to Writing with Orpheus Letters. This is all about the people, you all know the acronym LGBTQIA. Yes. This is about getting some attention to people who are not L and T. Who seem to take up 99% of the attention, and G is pretty much 90% of that. So, welcome. I am Griffith. I'm a trans woman. I started transition about a year ago, came out in January, and things are just starting to settle down into normal for me. I help run Readercon. You may have seen me running around frantically this past weekend doing 900 different things. And I'm the moderator for this panel. So I will start by having our other panelists introduce themselves.
Well, I'm going to go down.
Linguistics panel. Special request.
What else? Okay. Did anybody hear any of that? No. Okay. All right. I'm Amanda Downing, the author of Dreams of Shreds and Tatters, most recently, just came out in May, and The Necromancer Chronicles. I have written a few quilt bags of very, I'm overly fond of that.
My name is Rachel Schneidermeister, and I'm a queer fiction writer and a PhD student at the University of Cincinnati in creative writing and English literature. I'm working on a queer YA fantasy, and I've taught undergraduate courses there in fantasy writing, fiction writing, and LGBTQ literature.
I'm Catherine Ashling. I'm a poet, and I'm a queer, polyamorous, disabled Jewish poet. I really am taking all the minority cards as I go down. And so I've got a little different take because I'm writing poetry, and it's very personal, and I'm not doing role, and I'm not doing characterization as much.
I do love the quote bag because it's easy to say, but I see for this panel it's sort of quick back, and I don't know so where I'd like to start is the panel description mentions where it's been done well. And I don't know that there's many places that it has been done well outside of, well, in the more well-known literature. So I'd like to start briefly with any ideas you might have of places that's been done well, and then we'll move on more toward how to do it and why it's important. So, would anyone like to start with some examples of things that they know out there in your own work as capacity suitable for that? Okay,
I've got a couple of things that immediately come to mind. M.C.A. Bogart writes fantastic asexual fiction. The characters are very realistically done, the relationships are very intimate, very intense, and completely asexual all the time. So her books, especially the Dreamweaver's duology, I really enjoyed the relationships in that. Lois Visual also has some interesting takes on bisexuality throughout the Closing saga.
Oh, no, I don't know. I was trying fairly recently to think of the first trans character that I encountered in fiction. And I'm sure this isn't the first, but I'm a big fan of Andrew Vax, who writes hard-boiled crime books, and not speculative, and he has a long-running trans woman character, and these were coming out in the 80s, and there was a little rough, I think, in the beginning when she was first introduced, but she's a main character, very competent, very sympathetic, ends up with a long-term love interest. There's no tragic, queer ending, and it's just presented, and it's not maybe the best, but I think it's great, especially for the time, And there are other various queer characters weaving in and out, but she's a permanent fixture in the series. And that struck me at the time as just a very good representation.
Yeah, I'm older, so a lot of what I read when I was growing up, when I was first realizing these things about myself, was like Hamlin's Elephant Clear Night, or Jack Chalker's World series, or the Forwards of the Diamond, that we also did. And a lot of this wasn't really trans characters, it was unexpected gender swap, which was supposed to get back there. But you mentioned that it was done without the tragic queer ending and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the big problems with how it is represented. I'm a big comic reader, and one of the huge problems in comics is please forgive me for using this word, the training shows, where they're there for a joke, they're for a punchline. And some of the really big names in comics are absolutely horrible. Alan Moore, John Byrne, Grant Morrison. And I can't think of them because of this. But there are people who manage to do it well. And now that, again, fiction reflects society. And as the panel calls the lowercase letters are gaining in understanding and in visibility, we're starting to see a polarization. Bi characters are no longer just confused or strange. Trans characters are no longer there just as perverts or as a joke. Asexual people are finally starting to take it seriously. So what I'd like to get into a little is not so much what you've already read that does it well, because it's just coming around now. But how can you do it well? How do you show a character that, without just saying, hi, I'm bisexual, or hi, you, which is never the case, you know. But how do you demonstrate a gay character? You have your gay character for some of the man. Hey, look, it's pretty awesome. But for these other letters, and it's not as easy. So personally,
Before you go jump into specific examples of how to make these queer identities visible, I just think about the basic idea of character creation, that they're humans, who fit humanity, whole personalities, get rid of tokenism. Every character be as rich and full as any character as a basic. Sorry.
I think if you build in your world well, and you can sort of see the backstory. And I have been very out for nearly 20 years. I've had the extreme privilege of being able to speak out and not have to like my work or my role. And I find, especially when I'm meeting people, I don't even realize them out of myself, because we'll be talking, I'll say, so my ex-wife, and then later I'll talk about my boyfriend, and my ex-girlfriend, and my former partner, he lived in Jersey. It comes out and pretty quickly, and they figure out, okay, so that's what's going on there. And I think that's, you can throw in your stories if you're doing it. You can often reference back, and you can use that.
That actually makes me think of the classic thing. Speculative fiction, don't input them. It's the same thing with the identity.
Yeah, I don't think you need to input on it, you can just weave it into the narrative. Yes.
Yes, I think it's the graceful weaving that I think, to a certain extent, I think it's fine if you just say something baldly, but at the same time, you can layer things in gracefully, and it's, as you know, Bob, I've been out for 20 years versus just people talking about their histories. Most people, if they have romantic relationships, talk about their exes at some point. It comes up.
So a conversation that somebody will ask me about my son and his other parent, his wife. So I almost never actually say to anyone, I'm queer or bisexual. It's assumed. And I talk a lot.
I think it can also be a gradual revelation. Of course, the novel, just like so many other elements are, you're learning more about characters, about worlds, about, histories in the story.
the admitted fans knew that there's tons of fanfic going on it. And the next book is apparently going to be just a matter of fact. I don't know that, but that's it.
In terms of not having a topic focused on the outing of a character's gender, identity, or sexual identity, I'm particularly interested in queer YA fiction, which is growing, and it's growing in terms of actual speculative queer YA fiction. But there's a wonderful study, therefore this is not the literature we're looking at, but of young adult literature that has gay, lesbian, queer main characters from 1969 to 2004. It's by Michael Card and Christine Jenkins. And they've used a framework that was used first to analyze African American children's literature to look at queer literature. And they talk about three different kinds of stories. A story where it's homosexual visibility, and those are all the coming out stories. And then secondly, there's one where it's fully gay assimilation, where, okay, you're gay, the story will move along. And then third is queer consciousness, community that's embraced, which is part of life. And then, I think this is wonderful, they felt like that didn't really happen until a novel called Boy Meets Boy in 2003. And because I'm particularly interested in queer and trans and ETAIQ, readers who are teens, giving them these novels that are queer consciousness and community.
Representation is very important.
Yeah, and getting rid of the coming out narrative. And not that it's not important, but to not have always the stories that show persecution and strife, and that you can create this world where.
I do like to say I love when I had academics sometimes, because they remember all the details out of the books. I can just write that. It's great. But I like to mention one of the books that it's a wide like about that, because I think that's one of the places to really see it more than an adult fiction. One of the books that I absolutely love, and I wasn't expecting it because I hate audiobooks, because the voices are never right in my head. But it was Little Gray's Beauty. And she did such an amazing job reading it. There are footnotes in the book, and she reads them in the story, and they're still amazing. But there's a trans character. And it is dealt with so amazingly well. There is a coming out story, but it's not the tragic backstory. It shows the fear the character has about being discovered. But what happens when she does come out is just so well. It's an amazing book, and I encourage everyone to read it. Beauty Queens by Little Gray. And Little Gray. And I really would encourage you to listen to the audiobook. As someone who hates audiobook, it's a radio play, and it is so we also were talking about not just how to portray the characters. We're talking about the world around us, and what does that mean for your characters? Because one of the reasons that the trans and the bi and the asexual, the intergender coming out stories are so prevalent is because of the society around us and the horrible way people are treated by women. But we're writing science fiction and fantasy. It doesn't have to be that. So, when you have a world where people are accepted for who they are, a world where being trans or being bi or being intersex or being agender is simply a normal thing, because it isn't. How does that affect the system? How does it affect how we tell these stories about these people, that people know that they are there, not just, oh, there's another person who really are different?
Yeah, I think it's huge and important to do because of that liberating potential.
One of the things that I picked this up from Ellen Kushner in the Riverside books, of the sort of a societal default that just assumes bisexuality, or that is very open to that. And that corrected when I was writing my first trilogy. And at the end, you can start from there. Well, nobody's going to be identified this, and then start saying, well, what is successor to the society? How do they deal with these other things? So that it's not just being, oh my goodness, because boys and girls, that's shocking. And you can move that bar, and you can move that bar so much farther, which other writers have done.
It's not overtly queer, and it's not science fiction, but Lori King's Mary Russell novels, which are they're basically Sherlock Holmes fanfic with a young feminist lead, and she is very radical for her era and just very directly. Of course, some men sleep with women. Of course, some women sleep with other men. It's just very subtly threaded into the book, and it's hinted that she might be even the Sherlock Holmes might be, because when they met, we thought she was a boy. And it's just she's an academic. She's a Cambridge theology and chemistry scholar. So, Oxford. So she has this very academic, progressive, liberated view of the world. And for having this liberated for the view of sexuality fits with her persona. So,
one thing I'm really interested in world creation is the actual societal structures and structures of power. Because when I'm looking at queer YA books, I'm seeing books where the queer characters are accepted. It's just sort of, yeah, in society, sometimes, or women, or still the people who have the most power are heterosexual parents. And it's really, so you get this kind of like subtle acceptance, but at the same time, this oppression. And then you could say, well, you really believe in monarchy, you want to have, bisexual or transgender monarchs. But, so I mean, I think it's really tricky, and I think it's still problematic.
So maybe some of the characters are parents, and kids treat it like it's no big deal because it's not.
Exactly.
And I honestly can't think of any like that.
Yeah, and then that's another thing I've seen too, is that in some cases the characters have no model. It's not even parents. There's no one else in the society. So everyone's like, sure, you can be that way, or you can be this. There's no community.
Yeah,
There's no, yeah.
Isolation is really, it's a big thing that sorry to say it, it's so conditioned.
I've actually read your statement to AIQ. I'm like ready for it. I'm ready to.
So, go ahead.
Oh no, I just mean I'm
No, go ahead.
excited about the acronym.
Oh.
ETAIQ?
There you go.
Yeah.
So, BTAIQ characters who, you feel very isolated in society as it is, depending on region of the country, what region of the world. Massachusetts is pretty good. Twitter has helped enormously. But in books, you're right. We see characters in isolation. When we see these commands for other bi or other trans, it's you're the one in the world. And that's blocking. It's supposed to be liberating. It's supposed to be, oh, there's no one else like you, but there's no one else like them. So how do you represent a society, or a community for these people, rather than just general acceptance who will be
how diverse the world if you're writing on the grand scheme of things, again, back to the world, she has some planets that are very progressive, bisexuality is the norm, and other planets in her books where it's very taboo, and so she shows the interaction between people from the different planets and how they look at each other. But it's just, there's Beta, which is, Beta has few ways to represent where the show are a woman who likes men and married or unmarried. It's this whole coding, it's on your person, everybody can see it. I think too, as we move forward as a society, it's going to get better. I say that as mother of a very young son. I grew up very much isolated. I remember the first books I had access to were coming out and tragic and horrible. But my son is 4, and the other night he says, Mama, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dad. His 4's about 2000. there's the generational shift. It's going to be a little more. And I think as more and more we shift forward in the world, we can be out, we can be speaking publicly, we can say, yes, put this up on YouTube. As it fits more into the public eye, the art and the literature is going to follow.
And this is why I think we need to start writing it down for children or daughters or whatever gender they figure out. Because I would like to remind people that bi gender people exist, agender people exist. People don't even feel that they fit on the spectrum. They exist and they're important. And it's not one person out there. There's a lot of them. We have a problem with scale in our world. We have a tendency to look out there and go, oh, well, sure, there are trans people. There's what, like 90 of them? Because we can't wrap our heads around the fact that in the United States alone, we have probably 1 to 2 million trans people. And that's just the ones who feel comfortable identifying with, who feel comfortable being out about it. It barely counts the bi-gendered, agender, people with new genders, different genders. There are, you've heard the famous Kinsey study that says 10% of people are gay. Well, what everybody forgets is that's one extreme end of the scale. That doesn't count all the people who live. And so, by my own estimates, and this is incredibly unscientific, but by the people I see quoting statistics, the people I see researching, and it all comes out in dribs and drabs, but I'm betting the numbers are a lot higher, a lot closer to 30, 40, 50% of the population. But our society doesn't let us feel comfortable on putting out even an anonymous survey to give us accurate representation. And literature can help with that.
Well, this is just, because this is accurate representation is so important, and I just want to bring up what I think can be a challenge or a pressure, and that I'm feeling with the novel that I'm doing. I'm going to have transgender characters and bisexual characters, and after doing this panel, actually, it's going to be great for me thinking about other identities to think about for my work. But I feel like there's this pressure or expectation, because I don't want a reader to think I'm presenting a transgender character versus a transgender. I think that's the thing that burden of representation that makes me nervous, but I feel like I want to do it anyway. These are my characters, and it makes me think of when the L Word, that TV show, came out, and well, there's no other show with lesbians, so then there was a lot of disappointment because glamorous LA lesbians, mostly on a more feminine spectrum, are not representing all lesbians or queer women, and it can't, the show can't, but I think it makes it really important. But for me as a writer, it's really scary. I'm going to try to do my best, but I still kind of worry about, because I want readers to be able to find themselves, but I'm not going to be able to have every reader find themselves.
And I know I keep coming back to transitions, but that's me. In TV right now, we've got a lot of trans women characters, and unfortunately we have some black trans women characters. We don't have very many trans men. And a lot, we have no non-binary. And even in, there are 2 new shows that are coming out with absolute legend, where it's about family life and the dad's transition. And it's all about the kids and how it affects them. I help with that. This is a person. This isn't like someone's parent and it's their only thing in existence. And they're going for all horrible traditional tropes. And TV's not going to be the forefront. It has to be books, it has to be literature, it can be movies, it can be internet. But, so, that actually leads me to think of something else, if you don't mind. The internet is a great resource for
BTAIQ. I can just keep in mind. I think we should be here for this.
BTAIQ people. And what kind of writing do we see there? Different forms of writing, different media that we can use with purposes. I may have gone off the
I'm thinking these characters were queer, or what if we swap the gender for this character, or all of these things. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening there, and a lot of things for people to find. And just having the resources, the nonfiction resources. I know when I was writing an asexual character and just having, I know a few, but at the time, not as many. And I could find resources of a lot of people talking about different stories and the different ways this affected their lives and expressed in different people, and that was amazing.
I think, again, it comes back to visibility too, and what you were saying about how you have this weight of representing this spectrum. If more people are going to be out publicly and visible, it lets you get a glimpse into what somebody else's life is like. I often say that I think one of the most powerful forms of activism I can do is to just live very visibly. And then people get to know me, and I'm not saying, hi, I'm a label. They know me, and then they graduate on the rest of it.
That's actually one of the reasons why Wolfe frequently, even if I ever mentioned to the point where everybody sees these kind of communities, and I don't care.
Visibility is so important.
And it's not hard. Not everyone sees it. And I just want to emphasize that, because so often when people say visibility is important, it feels like scolding.
Yes.
But you have to be,
It can be your kind of person.
If you are
so, I'm sorry.
Well, I want to just, this is, I don't know, this is backtracking on me slightly, but just talk about other aspects of diversity, because we're talking about these gender and sexual identities, but I mean, there's so much intersectionality. There's, race, ethnicity, class, socioeconomic status, and then we already have within BTAIQ people that are going to be less represented within that, or have already been really insensitively represented. And I'm thinking of the way in our world, and I'm not less familiar with literature, but I'd be worried about it in African American transgender literature, and just to bring that into the writing. So we don't have a world of white privilege, BTAIQ.
I say this often on Twitter. If you're not thinking of intersectionality in every single thing you do, you're doing it wrong. It's important.
There's a book I want to recommend. The main character is a lesbian, so a little bit out of our scope, but she is a Black lesbian with chronic health disabilities in space. It is Ascension by Jacqueline.
Yes. I can't pronounce her name, but
it's spelled Koyanagi, and again, Ascension, a Tango-Axiom. It is one of the best representations of physical disability I have ever read. And I may not look like it, but I have pretty extensive pain and memory damage issues. And I read this book, and it's the first time I read something John and went, that's me.
I'd like to say that I really love your addition to the end list of in space.
She's also a spaceship mechanic.
Nice.
Awesome. There's a lot of boundary smashing in the book.
So I've been pretty bad the last several times as a moderator about allowing the audience questions. In about 5 minutes, we'll get the audience questions if there are. I know there's one. I remember you raised your hand before. So, okay, there is several. So we will be doing that. But in the meantime, there is one thing I'd like to recommend, which is one of they deal with gender, they deal with trans people, they deal with sexuality so very well. It's a comic book. And I know I keep coming back to comics, but I'm a great comic book writer. Raccoons. I cannot recommend this comic highly enough. Raccoons. Raccoons. It's a medieval fantasy. Lots of sword fighting, monsters, and all this kind of thing. But some of the characters are lesbians. Some of the characters are trans, and you get this stuff. And one of the great things about comics is the ability to show these things without having to describe, without having to have a paragraph saying, this character, and you use the reveals her breasts. When earlier in the comics, they don't have any. Or earlier in the book, they don't have any. And you don't have to like go, is this a character am I reading this right? Is the, you know, because sometimes the subtle things can get confusing when it's just prose. But for one of the characters, they're telling a narrative of their past. This is a female character. They're telling a narrative of their past. It's son of a king. And they tell this whole story, and at the end, they flash back to the present, and she's sitting there very chested on a, I don't even remember what it's on, it's a great picture. And that's it. They never say anything about them being characters. They just show it. And it's awesome.
And there's some beauty there too. Yeah.
Were they, did they have breasts back then? Why?
Yeah.
Did they need to be the son because they were the firstborn? Did they transition somehow?